This episode of the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast is brought to you by Patreon and the Gentleman Scofflaw merchandise page. Go to gentlemanscofflaw.com. In the menu, click the support or shop links to help support the show.
You are listening to the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast. Listener beware.
Rise and shine, the liquor store is open. I ain't got time for moping. I best be on my way. Well, I still got time to save my reputation. Time to go day drinking in this dirty little town.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast, the podcast for the rebel and a Renaissance man. I'm your host, Jordan Crowder. Co-hosting with me, as usual, is the Donovan Fowler. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I should mention that later on in the show, we're going to have Emmy-Winner Richard Janes on the show, and he's going to talk about some of the changing of the guard happening in the Hollywood and entertainment industry. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Old Tinseltown.
Town.
I read a couple of his articles. I felt very, very accomplished
after
reading his articles. They're very well researched and well written.
They
I
are.
will say that much. Very
much so. And let me just start, before we get into housekeeping, I'm going to thank one of our new patrons who joined at the... I'm trying to remember what the middle level is. I can't remember my own Patreon.
Oh, this is embarrassing.
Oh, this is bad, Donovan.
Uh-oh.
This is bad. Well, I'm going to thank Samuel.
Yeah.
Is his name.
Good job, Samuel.
That's all he did was put his name Samuel. Otherwise, I would say his last name.
You think it's Samuel L. Jackson?
Samuel L. Jackson. It's possible.
Is his avatar bald and slightly pissed off?
And wearing one of those kangaroo hats.
Oh yeah,
backwards.
That was always Samuel L. Jackson's thing. That's like that's like a page out of the bald guy's playbook is to just wear one of those hats backwards.
Yeah. So he joined at the gentleman level. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. If you want to support the show, get some extras, get the videos before the rest of the world. Go to patreon.com/gentscofflaw and sign up for as little as $1 an episode. Not $1 an episode, $1 a month. Come on, guys.
For less than a cup of coffee a month. You can give us enough to buy a cup of noodles a month. So
exactly.
Think about that. Think
true.
about that world.
We can survive on cups of noodles, can't we? But our teeth would fall out, I think.
Let's just put it this way. You can survive on cups of noodles, but I don't think you may not live very long.
It's possible. I think I read somewhere that somebody only ate ramen and their teeth fell out.
Yeah.
It's probably fake
that
news.
Stuff, it ain't natural. No, I honestly, you just know that stuff, it ain't healthy for you.
It ain't healthy for you.
It ain't good for you. That's not good for you.
Let's start off with a little bit of housekeeping here, Donovan. Cool. I've got, as we talked about with our good friend Zach a couple episodes ago, I helped him move out the other day. He told me, hey, there's lots of booze in the apartment. Take whatever you want.
Nice.
So I got some Johnnie Walker Black. I've never had any form of Johnnie Walker whatsoever, but I think the black is like the nicest one, right?
No.
No? Am I wrong?
The blue is the nicest one.
Blue?
Black is like black. Yeah, Blue Label. I've never had it, but Blue Label is expensive.
Okay.
Black Label is like
red is the worst though, right? Well, not the worst, but the lowest.
Yeah, red is like the cheapest stuff. That's Donovan Scotch right there. It's red. But yeah. Black I did a whole thing on it, but yeah, is that double black or just black?
Just black. It's actually very good. I'm drinking out of my Glencairn glass here that I'm holding up to the camera. If you guys want to watch on the video podcast,
what a snob!
See what the color's like.
Jeez Louise.
Oh, it's got some nice legs on there. Is that what they say? Isn't that what they say?
Jeez. I don't know. I'm not one of those people.
I think Gerald Morgan, who's been on before, talk about wine. I think that was one of the things people call it. His legs.
Yeah. That's probably some of the terminology.
And I don't think it matters. He said.
I think with whiskey, it's the nose and the nose and the palate.
Yeah.
Right.
The palate, mouthfeel.
Mouthfeel.
Is that a beer thing?
Call it mouthfeel.
Let's just call it that.
Wait. What does it taste like to you?
It's good.
Like,
it's
is it very peaty, or what's the deal?
What? It smells more peaty than it tastes, and this is the first time I've ever had anything peaty that almost smells. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but almost smells like moldy in a way, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Like an earthy, not moldy, like an earthy
cheese.
An earthy kind of smell, but it is smooth. It's not. I didn't expect it to be as smooth as it is.
Man. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Johnnie Walker, I feel like I said, like I remember I was you were part of this thing. We shot that music video with Mike Baylog, Mike.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mike Baylog, and they had a bunch of scotch bottles and stuff, but they needed to empty them out and fill them with like iced tea. I don't know if that's like a regulation or something.
Oh, geez, what a shame.
Yeah. Well, no, but what they did was that they emptied them out into like regular like Perrier bottles and stuff. So they basically filled these water bottles up with scotch, and guess who got to take them home?
That's nice. You just had a bunch of Perrier with nice scotch.
I know. It felt so cheap. It was Valentine's Day, and my roommates were all sitting around watching like what were we watching? Like The Shining or something. And I was drinking scotch out of a Perrier bottle. It was a very unique experience.
It'd be a unique way to sneak into a movie theater. I'm also smoking. Figured it would pair nice with this. This is some of the last of R.I.P. Frogmorton Cellar tobacco, which is an English Balkan blend, I think they call it. Has a little whiskey stave in there. Nice. I've been smoking it in my little Baracchini pocket pipe as I take little bits of it until it's gone. So that's why I've been slowly working it through it the last 2 years.
That's we salute you. We salute you,
McClellan.
What's the name of the
McClellan's Frogmorton?
Okay, and it has, for those of you who can't see, it has a frog on the label.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to be
like
very
Mr.
happy.
Toad. It's actually pairs well.
Toad.
It's a good Scotch pairing blend. If you guys,
if it's English, I feel like if it's English, then it's better.
If you guys know of anything that's a little similar to Frogmorton, let us know, because leave us a comment here and let us know what that is, because it's been hard for me to find a match, and it'll never be a true match. I feel like plum pudding for me seems kind of similar, which I've talked about on the show.
Sounds British enough.
Yeah, and then there's another blend that I love of theirs called Holiday Spirit, which is an aromatic blend that actually tastes really good. It almost tastes like you're smoking cookies. And that's not always the case for aromatics, where they really taste like their flavor.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I'm all out of that. So if you know where I can get something similar.
I am kicking myself. I did not bring my pipe out with me. But
what are you drinking there?
What am I drinking?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh, sorry. I thought that's what you're going into. I didn't mean to.
You misinterpreted my segue, man. No, I was just gonna say I was actually like legitimately irritated with myself that I didn't bring my pipe, because it's just like this is the perfect time to sort of just sit down with a pipe. But I have been smoking cigars on occasion. I went and got an Arturo Fuente. I don't know what was it called, like Especial or something like that, and it's super cheap, and it's just like it was okay. It was an okay cigar. Let's just say that. It was not the worst cigar I've ever had, but it definitely wasn't the best. I've got a punch in my ruck.
Those are good.
To open up this weekend. But yeah, that's mostly what I've been smoking lately. But I should really just go out and buy a Meerschaum like a Missouri meerschaum and just some tobacco from the local.
You're not even that
gentleman's
far. Are you from the actual plant? Probably you can, or the factory. You could probably drive there in a couple hours.
Yeah, I don't know how. I don't. Yeah, I come seeking a meerschaum. I just like stumble into the factory, and they're like, "Get out! We don't want you here. We're not open." No, but yeah, I could definitely, there's some tobacconists around that I could probably.
If not, you can always order from our good friend Scott at aristocob.com. Little plug for him.
That's true.
What are you drinking there, Donovan? You've been really getting into bourbons lately, so.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's funny because like it's like you were talking Scotch, and I last summer around this time of year, I started to get into Scotch. Mainly just because I realized I had never really given whiskey much of a thought when I was drinking it. I mean, even when we were drinking it on the podcast, I was like, I don't know, like it's whiskey.
Gets it done.
Yeah, mix it with some Dr. Pepper and call it a day. No, I mean, that used to be my attitude with whiskey. And then I started to do a deep dive on Scotch, and that was fun. And then I thought Scotch was my drink, and then I moved into bourbon. And yeah, man, it's been great. I mean, basically, as we've talked about before, I've gone through the Trader Joe's bourbons and then Evan Williams, which Evan Williams white label is sort of my game these days. But I was able to pick up a bottle of Old Grandad, which I had heard. I don't remember the name of the reviewer. He's like an old Scottish guy, but I was able to hear his review of it like a month or so ago, and I was always curious of it. And it's a 100 proof bonded, which means 100 proof, and or rather, is it 100 proof? Yeah, 100 proof, 50%. And it's been interesting. It's sort of like I'm gonna pour a glass, and I'm gonna kind of do a little review. But let's just hear that cork. Oh yeah,
sounding good.
But yeah, it's an old label. I mean, it's been around for a while, but it's pretty good. I like it. I don't know if I'd say. Well, I'll keep the verdict off until a little bit later.
Give it a little taste,
but
a little sniff. Yeah,
dude, my nose is so bad. Like I can hear stuff from like a mile away, but my nose is like. If there's natural gas in this house, we're not making it out.
Colorblind with a highly acute sense.
Honestly, the nose smells a little bit. This is just going to come off, and this is not to insult Old Granddad, but it comes off a little cough syrupy.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes I like cough syrup though. Sucking on Old Granddad's cough syrup.
Yeah, sucking on Old Granddad's cough syrup. I don't know. Maybe that's where it comes from.
Pumpkin pie haircut at freak. Comment down below if you know that reference.
Oh, man. So good. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't know. I mean, it's not as it is almost a little sweet. Like it's a weird, I don't know. I can't shake the sort of cherry cough syrup taste that I'm getting from this. I don't know, but I'm, as you can tell, I'm not a professional. What they call them, sommelier. So I'll just go off what I'm feeling here.
Is this your first crack at it?
No. I've been drinking. I've been taking like little cracks at this. Actually, my dad and I broke into it last night because he can't remember where he hid the bottle of Four Roses that we bought from the liquor store. So I was like, well, I've got the Old Granddad.
Sounds like a post liquor store trip.
It was, I can't remember where we stowed that other bottle. No, but anyways, long story short, he took a drink of this and he was just like, it was that sort of like in Great Escape where they pass the moonshine that they're making around, the potato moonshine.
Yeah.
And they each take a drink and one of them's like, oh, wow. It's just like this like afterburn, which I love. That's what I love about it. This and Evan Williams white label. I'm big on the afterburn. Like it's that
usually people use the term afterburn meaning something else, but You enjoy the afterburn.
I do. I enjoy the after. I'm thinking Top Gun, man. I'm thinking jets. Come on.
You're not thinking of.
I don't know where your mind's going.
The next morning after you've had Buffalo Wild Wings. That's what I call the afterburn.
Well, you and I are living on. I don't go to Buffalo Wild Wings. You and I are living on two different planets. But no, this has a nice like. It's that like alcohol that kind of stays in your throat.
Yeah.
And if you play it right, if you sip, like it's good for sipping because you sip it and then you take a deep breath after you sip it.
Yeah.
And it's like you can feel it just sort of go into your head. It's really cool. It's like a really cool feeling. And I feel like I've had that with Buffalo Trace.
It almost sounds like wasabi. Like the way you're describing it.
Yeah, it's really weird. It is like that. It's like it irritates your or horseradish.
Yeah, horseradish.
It doesn't really get into the navel cavity, so it's not quite that. But it is that sort of weird thing. So I'm a big fan of that. And once you go there, it's sort of hard to come back. But I'll say this, for the price, it's not bad. It's like $20 a bottle, or at least that's what I got it for here in Kansas. I feel like I wouldn't put it above Evan Williams White Label. I think that's still my favorite bonded bourbon.
Okay.
But it's pretty good. It's yeah. I'll go for it. You know, if it's around, I'll drink it.
What do you give it on the scale?
Let's see. Well, if Evan Williams White Label is like so Eagle Rare on my scale right now, and I'm like we've said, full disclosure, I'm not a whiskey sommelier. Like I said, I used to just mix it with Dr. Pepper and it was fine. But as I've been getting into it, you know, I've ventured out a little bit. Eagle Rare, I'd say, was like a 10 for me. Like that was my favorite. I love that whiskey, which also has a high rye content like Old Granddad does. But Eagle Rare is great. Buffalo Trace probably is like 8, you know. I'd say Evan Williams White Label is actually, if it's not a 7.5, it's an 8. So I'd put Old Granddad at probably a 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you heard it from the Don here. It's a 7 on 1 to 10. Go ahead and check it out. Let us know what you think of it if you've had it before. Leave a little note in the comments here. Tell us and give us your review of it. I mean, hey, we want to learn from you too. Let us know what we should try out.
Give us your whiskey stories.
If you're on Instagram, tag some whiskey labels. Say, hey, we want Jen Scofflaw to try these out. You know, maybe they'll send us something to try out on the show. Maybe become a sponsor. That could be a thing. Anyway, speaking of whiskey, and me cleaning out somebody's apartment where there was a lot of, this one was completely unopened, which I was surprised. But there were a lot of them that were, half open.
Sure.
I don't know how long they had been there. You sent me this article this week about the shelf life of alcohol, which we could talk about. What did we find here?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, so actually this all stemmed from my sister was bringing up the fact that with all this, with the corona, I don't know what accent I did right there. With corona hitting the streets, it's, you had a lot of restaurants that had surplus of alcohol, specifically beer, like kegs and stuff. Because if you think about it, it happened right before St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
So a lot of these restaurants, I mean, they make their money with alcohol anyway. I'm not an economist. I don't know exactly how this all works, but they had a surplus.
I'm no doctor.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, not an economist, not a whiskey sommelier. I'm just a podcaster. I'm just a humble podcaster. Okay. No, but they were with their food curbside pickup. They had the alcohol just out on the sidewalk, like just boxes of beer and kegs and stuff. And it was because it was all going to go bad. So they wanted to sell it off and get rid of it. I hope they were selling it at a discount. I did not encounter any of these kegs out on the sidewalk, but I probably would have bought one.
A lot of people were making cocktails to go too. A lot of these businesses.
Yeah, I've heard that, which is interesting. I say go for it, but I also say don't drink and drive. So
in Texas they have in Longview. I forget what the name of the business is. This is such a Texas thing. There is a drive-through. Like I think you can get drive-through margaritas. But the way that they get around the liquor thing is that they hand it to you in the car, but I think that there's a top on the straw, like they leave the paper on the straw.
Yeah.
So it's considered a closed container. And you're not supposed to drink and drive, but you can take it home and you've got your margarita.
That's weird.
But yeah, I'm sure many people take it as a roadie on their way home from work.
Speaking of closed containers, just a quick segue from this conversation. I recently read up on a football player. I don't remember his name. He got busted for like several, whatever you call it, violations for driving, with various substances. And one of them was driving with a container with a broken seal.
Oh, wow.
And I'd never thought of that. Like thinking back now, how many times I was driving in California with like a whiskey bottle that had maybe had a few shots taken out of it earlier in the week or whatever. But I wasn't like we drove to San Diego, I want to say. Although that Tullamore Dew may have been. I think it was fresh. But
is that
anyways,
the same law in California though? I don't know. I know Texas you can't have an open container.
I think it is. California, are you kidding me, man? I mean, California, they'll like crucify you for
I feel like their liquor
on the
laws
sidewalk.
are much looser here.
Maybe. Yeah, you might be right. But either way, I talked to my dad about it. My dad's a lawyer, and I was like, is it like, can you really get nailed for driving with like if I was going to a friend's house and I threw like a half empty bottle of Evan Williams in the back, what would you get for that? And he was like, yeah, it can be really bad. Oh, so just a reminder to all you scofflaws out there, be smart.
Don't scoff too many laws.
Yeah, put it in the trunk. Don't give them an excuse to
what if you have a hatchback? That's the issue, right? I don't know. That's what I've got.
Then you hide it in the spare tire wheel well. No, but like a real bootlegger. Yeah. No, but anyways, back on track. That's crazy about the drive-through margaritas, but I do like the fact that these restaurants have been able to like give like 6-packs away with their stuff. I mean, to me that's just fun. Like it's like, okay, I'll pick up a pizza and get some like beer with it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think beer has a shorter shelf life than whiskey, though, right? Because of the carbonation and the yeast and all that stuff.
Yeah, it does. I mean, honestly, I and like Jordan was saying, you guys can comment and send us your stories on, maybe some bad skunk beer that you've had or some beer experiences when it's been expired. But ultimately, beer, the word on the street is the beer goes bad after 3 months. I remember, this is funny because recently we were cleaning out the fridge at my place and my roommate had a bottle of Stella Artois. And I was like, I looked at the label and it was about a year past or something like that.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, you want this? And he was like, no. Like he looked at me like I was crazy. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm not going to let it go to waste. So like I cracked it open. It was fine. I mean, it really not like it didn't. So I think it's
if you keep it chilled and then out of light, then it's probably will last longer. But I think like sometimes people will like store like excess beer from a party like out on a patio in the sunlight before they bring it in to put in the fridge when they want it. And then that's when that could accelerate the process.
The best was like, I remember going over to friends' houses in the summer and seeing, like they had a party, a summer party or something like maybe a couple weeks before or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was like a ice bucket, like a big old like drink tub that had ice in it with like a bunch of beer and stuff. And now it was just all melted. And it was just like the beer was just floating in this like under their deck or whatever. It was just the laziest thing. But yeah, man, I mean, it sounds like, I don't know, 3 months to me sounds a little steep, like you said, but I think if you chill it and everything, you're good. Whiskey, vodka, tequila, rum all lose their flavor if you open it about 6 to 8 months after opening.
Really?
Which, yeah,
I've had
that's
a lot of
something to
bottles
consider.
older than that around.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, honestly, like I said, I'm not a sommelier. So if I drink something and I'm like, yeah, it tastes good, it's like I might maybe get a sense of like the flavor is gone, but I'm not going to be like, super on point with it.
I've
But
also
it does
read
sound
that
like,
it has to do with how much was left in the bottle. So if you're storing a full bottle, there's less place for
that's
air
true.
to cause oxidation.
Yeah,
And-
exactly. If that's why I try to, once I open a bottle, I try to drink it as fast as possible. You got to make sure that oxidation doesn't happen.
Open it and put it in the
Officer,
smaller
please.
Perrier bottles.
Yeah. Officer, please. I mean, that bottle of Old Granddad, it was wasting away and I had to drink it before I got the car.
Exactly.
No, but so then there's, other than that, there's wine, which can last up to 10 years. But once you open it, I don't know, man. My roommates have opened bottles of wine and I've just seen them sitting there uncorked for days and they will still drink them. And I'm like,
yeah. You're supposed to drink it within a day, I think. Or you could, I think you could cork it and put it in the fridge for like 2-3 days. But
that's what they say. That's the, but bottom line is that the higher sugar content, the faster it'll go sour or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
but whiskey doesn't really it doesn't go like, because beer will clearly turn like it's gone bad. Where I feel like whiskey just can lose its flavor, but it doesn't ever there's no process. There's nothing that could grow in it like mold or anything. It's such high alcohol content.
No, yeah.
So
honestly, I think it all depends on the alcohol. I mean, aged whiskey. I mean, there is something about this is an aged whiskey or whatever. This is like a 10-year-old, 12-year-old Scotch. So to me, it's like, I don't know. I mean, it depends on the alcohol. Plus, I have heard even red and white wine. Yeah. Like white wine does not age. You want to drink that relatively within the season that you buy it. Whereas red wine you can age for a while. Although the problem with the wine is my dad has a pretty good wine cellar.
Your dad has a wine problem? That's what it sounded like you were going to say.
Yeah, my dad's a real wino. He just stumbles around Leawood, Kansas.
He's losing whiskey bottles.
Hey, I don't usually do this, but could you buy me a pizza? Dad, come on, let's go. He'll open up wine bottles that are 20 years old, and then the cork just instantly dissolves. And then you got a freaking cheesecloth thing. There's got to be an easier way. I mean, there's got to be some device that they've figured out where it'll, you can just throw it on the wine bottle and filter it. But
our
it happens all the time.
Gerald, who's been on the show before, talk about wine. I actually shot some videos for him years ago where he showed me this contraption that's almost like a syringe that goes in through the cork into the bottle and extracts the wine. And then you could pull it out and it completely seals as if it was never opened. So it's always stays like a brand new bottle. No air gets into it. So I feel like with something really old, maybe something like that would still work for a crappy cork or something.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. We'll ask him in the future. What we need to do is let's take a quick little break because joining us really shortly here is Richard Janes. Men or women, this one's for you. Let me take a second to talk to you about GoRuck. Now, you've heard us on this show talk about their awesome endurance events, which are, great for fitness and team building. But of course, they are known for their amazing gear. Some of the best gear in the world, actually. I myself own a GR1 rucksack for all my rucking and training. I also have one of their 30-pound ruck plates, which is so convenient because I could just drop it in the laptop compartment on my bag, and I have a weighted ruck. It's super cool. But one of my all-time favorite things that they offer are their sandbags. Now, if you've never trained with a sandbag, you're in for a treat. I love that you can keep it in the trunk of your car and take it to the park and you have a gym anywhere. Ever try doing sandbag man makers with 60 pounds? I mean, you get a fun and very hard training session in really quickly. It's a big bag of suck in all the right ways. Now, Even if you're not in the rucking, they have tons of sleek apparel for the outdoors in addition to their gear that is tough as nails and built to military standards. Also, their apparel and gear offer their scars a lifetime warranty, so you buy the item once and that's it. You're set for life. But you know what the greatest thing is about GoRuck? All of it is made in the good old USA, and by Special Forces veterans, mind you. It doesn't get more badass than that. That's right, America. To check out GoRuck gear, go to gentlemanscofflaw.com/GoRuck, and anything you buy through that link helps support the show. That's gentlemanscofflaw.com/GoRuck. Whether it's for your fitness regimen, your outdoor lifestyle, or just, a great bag for everyday carry, you're going to want to check them out. GoRuck, built in the USA. All right, Donovan, I'm excited to have this guest. Friend of mine sent me one of his articles this week, which was really interesting. But he is an Emmy Award-winning personal brand expert, and he also has a podcast called Finding Passion and Purpose. Richard Janes, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey guys, it's good to be here.
Yeah, this is fun. You're over in Oklahoma right now, which we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But for our listeners that don't know you, just give us a little bit about your background and kind of where you came from and what you do.
Yeah, well, we got a bit of time because we're in quarantine, so I'll give you a bit more detail than I would do normally. How about that?
Exactly.
So I started off as a precocious child actor back in the UK, if my accent didn't give it away, right? And it was at a time, so this was sort of 94, so it was pre-YouTube. And so one of the things that brands would do in America is they would test out their product that they didn't feel very confident in on Eastern Europe. So think things like... I did a commercial for Starburst, the drink. And think about melted down Starburst and just drinking that. It was the most disgusting thing in the world. So what they do is they take these English actors, often kids with stuff like that, and they'd fly them out to Budapest, and we'd have to do these commercials in 3-4 different languages. And it was great because the translators were always these really hot, gorgeous Eastern European women who would just sort of be there, sort of trying to teach you how to say these words and getting up close to your mouth and moving your mouth. And so I had a really fun childhood. So I go and do that. And then in the summers, I shot a series with Children's BBC. So I was based at Ealing Film Studios called The Demon Headmaster. So Demon School Principal. Right. And then got into, I sort of realized very quickly that all the power was behind the camera, and what the hell am I doing as an actor? I need to get a bit of that power. So I went back to film school, worked as Terry Gilliam and Tarsem's assistant, and then made started doing some plays because I'd never done theater work as an actor. And I got into a situation where we had a play that was going to transfer to the West End, and it was 2001. So it was just as we were going to war with Afghanistan. And it was an anti-war play. Wow. And the theater owners were these dastardly Americans. And over a dinner with the investor, we were told that they decided that not to put on an anti-war play in their theater in the West End because they were concerned about sentiment of anti-war as we were going to war. Yeah. And the owner, the investor said, you can't do this. I'm putting in £500,000 into this theater production. And if I don't put it in and spend it, then it's all going to go to the government because it's wrapped up in this, what's called an enterprise, what was it called? EIS, Enterprise Investment Scheme. And in England, by the way, a scheme is not a bad thing. The government approve of it. Okay. So I said to her, I said, well, okay, what else can you spend this money on if you have to spend this money? Let me work out a way of spending it for you. Would it work for a film? And she said, yes, it would. Do you have a project? And I said, I had the best project in the world. It's phenomenal. And she said, what is it? Pitch it to me. I said, listen, we've had a bit to drink. So let's not do this right now. Let's meet up tomorrow. We can have a good cup of tea, and I can tell you what this actually is. So I ran home and I got on the internet and I found a script. And that day, and I contacted the writer and said, look, here's the crazy thing. I might have £500,000 to shoot this movie, which means you're not getting hardly any money whatsoever. But do you want to see your movie made? He said yes. And we ran I ran back the next day to her, told her the story. She said, "That's great. That's brilliant. Let's do it. Oh, by the way, because you were going to go into production with the theater show, you have to have spent all the money on the production within the next 10 weeks.
Holy crap.
I said, "We can do it. Don't worry." So we went off and shot the movie. And that was my first feature film. I brought Smart Car in to sponsor it. Do you know the little 2-seater cars?
Yeah.
So they'd never been involved in a movie the way that sort of the Mini had been made with the Italian Job. And I had this big thing that we'd make this £500,000 movie, and it would be like the Italian Job. It would be that big. Needless to say, it's called Fakers, or The Art of the Heist in America, when Lionsgate renamed it, and no one has heard of it. So I didn't do as well as the Italian Job, but it got me into the film world. That then got me into, I got a phone call to go to Hollywood. And that in of itself was a nuts story. I was at the cast and crew screening in Leicester Square, which is the big place where all the screenings happen. Think Chinese Man in Hollywood, right? Okay, yeah, so we'd rented it out at like 4 o'clock in the morning, because that's the only time I could afford to rent the theater out, just so that we could all watch it on a big screen. And someone came up to me and said, "Hey, I live in Hollywood now, and I know some people out there. And have you ever thought about coming to Hollywood?" And I was 22 at the time. And I said, "Yes. What do you do in Hollywood?" And she said, "I'm a teacher." And suddenly, I felt a bit deflated. Oh, I had this dream that she was going to be a big Hollywood executive, and she was going to whisk me off, and I'd have this amazing life ahead of me. And I said, "Well, look, I'd love to come out. I'm dead broke because I've just made this movie. I didn't pay myself on it." And she phoned me 2 days later, and she said, "Listen, I'm back in Hollywood, and I've spoken to some friends, and they want to see your movie. Can you come out and show it to them?" I said, "Well, yeah. I mean, I was thinking about the end of the year, trying to save up some money." She said, No. These people, if they say they want to see your movie, you have to be out here within a couple of days." I said, "Well, who are they?" So she told me these names, and I had no idea who they were, because I had no idea about Hollywood at all. Yeah. Ended up flying out here, going to Terry Semmel's house. At the time, Terry Semmel had just been the CEO and president of Warner Brothers. He just left to become the CEO of Yahoo. We watched the movie at his house in his private screening room. So in those days, we were still shooting on film. So I walk into his house with these film canisters, because someone said that he's got a movie theater in his basement. Yeah. And I go in, and I don't see any film projection glass at the back. No. And I panic. I'm at the head of Warner Brothers' house, about to show the movie to his family, and all I've got is these bloody film cans. How stupid am I? And someone said, "Oh, no, watch this." Boop, 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 boop. And all the paintings started to move to reveal the screening room behind them. It was one of those moments where for like 3 weeks I was just pinch me. This is the dream. Anyway, needless to say, I ended up meeting a young lady who was trying to get me to work on a film, and we fell in love. And I said, right, Hollywood's going to be my home, because she had a deal at Warner Brothers at the time. Got into development on a number of different movies, but in the last writer's strike, a group of friends and I hatched a plan for what we would call eventually Filmmaker's Ranch, but also this idea that we all knew so much about how to make movies, but the key to any power of making movies is distribution. Yeah. And distribution at that time was controlled by the studios. But this new thing called social media was coming up that actually could change all of that. So I then built an agency that looked after over 100 celebrities, everyone from Larry King to young Disney stars, building up their social media so that we could understand how to distribute IP, whether that is a movie or a TV show, or whether that is simply selling perfume through social media. And I still have that company in LA, but as you rightly pointed out earlier on, I'm now in Oklahoma City, where we got a great team in LA, great team in Dallas, but I just needed a bit of a slower pace of life, and where I could really learn to authentically use the word y'all. And that is a word. There aren't many American words that I think should go all around the planet, but that is one of them. I think it's just phenomenal. Yeah, how y'all doing? Yeah,
it's a very efficient word. I mean, I'm from Montreal, Canada, and I married a Texan. And like when I moved to Texas, everybody's using y'all, and I was started to use it within months, and people were like, I can't believe you're using y'all.
It is so good. Yeah. It's so useful, and it's so easy. It's so easy. But there's so many words that took a while for me to get used to in America. I remember going in very early on to a store and asking if they had any jumpers because it was cold, and they looked at me as if I was stupid. And I said, "Oh, yes, of course, it's a sweater." And then she asked me if I wanted to try pants with the sweater, and that's when I thought she was being really forward, because obviously pants in England is underwear, and not the pants. They do say that what is it? We are a common language divided by something or other. Oh, I can't remember the quote, but it is amazing. The very first talkie movies in England that came from America had to have subtitles because the English people had no idea what these Americans were saying.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah. And there's some stuff that I watch even that's based in the States that I have trouble understanding the accents. It's like there's so many accents here. You guys have a lot of accents there too. Like when I originally watched the UK Office, like that was hard for me to listen to because there's so much overlap and it's like kind of its own thing. But being from Canada, we have a lot of the similar expressions that you have in the UK, so it's a little bit easier to understand.
Now I may be completely off here.
Yeah.
You weren't born in Canada, though, were you?
No.
You were born in the land of the car.
Yeah, I was born in Detroit. Yeah.
But
I was there for like
40 going through a resurgence, isn't it? Well, it would be interesting to see what happens now.
Yeah. Although I was there a few years ago, and it's like, to me, it kind of reminds me of like almost like one of those like fake Western towns. It's like being propped up on stilts or whatever they call them, because you walk through the downtown and it's all new and hip and nice, and you go 2 blocks over and it's just like these bombed out these buildings that looks like something from a Romero zombie movie or something.
Well, I think that's one of the problems with a lot of the development of towns and cities outside of the major metropolis is when you have something like Detroit, where it's the big money is coming through ad agencies and the car companies, where people are being flown in to live there for a brief period of time because they say this is a career step for me, so I'm going to go and live there for a while. And you see this little bubble of a lot of money, but it's not actually as much seeping out into the local community. I remember feeling going into some of the ad agencies there, this sense of, as you walk in and you see the guards and you see the janitor staff, you could still feel this sense of struggle and rejection and just troubled life. But as soon as you get into the elevator and it opens on another level, that energy changed.
Yeah. It's really weird. It's like that somewhere in LA sometimes too. It feels that way here.
I think LA is an interesting is an opposite of that, in that there's so much wealth. Yeah. And yet I remember when I moved to Oklahoma City, and the story of moving to Oklahoma City was we toured the US for 2 years looking for a place to move to. Yeah. And the deal was my wife and my 2 kids and myself, all 4 of us had to agree on a place. So we went to Austin, we went to all the normal places. And there was always one of us that said, I don't know about this. But we landed in Oklahoma City pretty much by accident, coming to ride some horses for 3 days to pretend to be cowboys and cowgirls. And within 24 hours, the 4 of us had looked at each other and said, oh my goodness, is this it? This is it. And we moved out here 3 months later. Wow. But when I told people in LA, I've got friends who live in the Palisades in those big swanky $4 or $5 million homes. Yeah. And they were also, okay, how much have you bought your house for? And I'd tell them how much we bought our house for, and it's 5 bedrooms and it's got a big yard and it's tree-lined streets everywhere. And the fact that for the 4 of us to go to the movies on a Friday night costs about $18, wow. Although obviously not at the moment. But one of the things that those people who even I thought were financially incredibly stable would say, I'm on an interest-only mortgage. I'm scared to death of the interest rate going up. I would love to be in your position to be able to move to a place that was more economical. And I think there's an air when you come to a place like Oklahoma or perhaps Detroit, and that the school teachers, even if they have very low income and very low pay, can afford to buy a house in their early 20s and know that by their mid-50s, that house is completely paid off. Yeah. Is completely different from an environment in Los Angeles where there's no teacher who's really affording a house today to go and buy it, let alone many of the middle class can't get in on those $1 million homes that are still 1,000 square foot, haven't been done anything since the 1950s, and no dishwasher. Right. And I think that plays on the psyche and the environment of the place. And part of it's good, right? Because it's this drive to do better and to do bigger. But I think even those people that you look at and they're doing millions of dollars of value and income, they're in a situation where they're still shitting bricks, if I can say that, that it's all going to fall down.
Yeah. And it's, I know so many people that have businesses or have production companies and that have done a similar thing to you, where they've gone to Austin or Dallas or to even like Seattle or anywhere other than LA to move their business, because it's a friendlier environment to be able to have some, like you said, have some sense of normal life, but also still produce entertainment and art, which brings us to, I guess we could talk about your article, which the title was called "Prepare for Death and Rebirth of Hollywood." That's
what a title, huh?
Yeah, it's great. It's such clickbait. No, but yeah, that's the thing is, does the movie industry or the entertainment industry really need to be in LA anymore?
Look, if you look at why was it in LA, it was in LA to begin with because of the sunshine and the availability of very, very, very cheap land. Yeah. The need for sunshine has changed, which is why we're shooting all over the world. It is definitely not cheap land anymore. Yeah. And then the reason why it stayed in Hollywood is because that's where the power base was, right? That's where the agents were, and with their big, fantastic Darth Vader-like buildings and their massive expense accounts and the fantastic restaurants. It's where the money was coming out of the networks and the studios. But if we look at just look at the numbers that are happening now with the amount of people that are cutting their cable subscription. In the last 3 months, those numbers have gone berserk. But what has gone berserk as well is streaming. And if we look at Netflix, where's Netflix based? It's Northern California. If we look at where Amazon's based, Amazon's up in Seattle. It is Seattle, isn't it, for Amazon?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Suddenly blanking. If we look at if we look at a lot of the people who are really making the big shifts within our entertainment industry, and on a technology level, the gaming industry is going to make a massive, massive impact on us in the next 18 months. Yeah. Then you start to look at North Carolina for Epic Games. You start to look at Vancouver for EA Games. The power base is being sucked out of Hollywood. Yeah. And so you have a central talent base is there, but it's extremely expensive to make product. And so when you look at what Atlanta's been able to do over the last initially 12 years, has been phenomenal. And I think you're going to see more and more of that pop up into these regional bases, especially when we look at, film and TV production have a massive problem at the moment in that they can't get insured. So when you make a film and TV show, you're spending, perhaps $100,000 a day. Well, what happens when someone gets sick? Yeah. What happens when COVID spreads through that small group who are all nice and close together and you get locked down? And now the insurance companies aren't covering it. There's one product that's about to come out that should be covering actors on set. And I imagine everyone will just sign up for this, but it's going to be expensive, right? Yeah. So you're in a better position when you can move that project out to an environment where all of your cast and crew can isolate in a nice way, in a nice hotel with still space, and you can go and shoot in an environment where you can close down streets and you still won't have a load of people all around you. Yeah. And that's going to mitigate that risk. And the more that studios can mitigate that risk, the more that they will do. So they will be shooting more and more outside of Hollywood and Los Angeles.
Yeah. And it's true though, like people think about the shooting location idea too. Like if you want to shoot on location, you want to go into a pub or something, and like it doesn't matter how small your production is, it's so expensive to do in California anywhere. Like I was working on a short back in December, and just to go in and get an hour shooting in a convenience store, it was like ridiculous. And in Austin, I could literally just go to, the little corner store and say, hey, can we come in, at the least busy hour, and can we shoot a couple of things, and we'll, we'll give you $100 or whatever. That's what it's like in other cities. And in LA, it's just like, nope. Everyone's got their hand out.
What's funny is like when I first came out to Los Angeles, I remember I had to sit down with a big producer, and I was looking for some advice, and I asked him his advice, as a young filmmaker, what should I do? And I was surprised because he came out with, I would leave Los Angeles. And this is 10 years ago. I mean, this was like 2010. He was like, he said, around here, there's so much competition. And it's all centralized, it's like everything's here. You're going to get stifled, and and I think he knew about gatekeepers and all that stuff. But he was making the point of like, go to a place where you can actually build something, and you can actually kind of have the freedom to create. And it's something I've thought about a lot over the course of the last 10 years. Every once in a while, think about leaving Los Angeles. I think about striking out somewhere else. And now, I mean, having read your article, Richard, it is really, really interesting to, with the demand for content, especially coming up, given this crisis that we're in. And on top of that, even before that, I was looking at streaming services and I was thinking, these guys really seem to want to fill up their libraries. Like where, how can I get in on this? So maybe you can speak into the future of that, how that's going to play into opportunities for entertainment in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in a golden age. We really are. And it's ridiculously exciting because we're in a situation where Netflix, the king, really was in a situation where the Netflix brand was, you want to stream something, come to us. Right? Yeah. Now, that's a first mover advantage because they were able to go and get all these streaming rights. And then the Writers Guild and everyone else was able to say, hang on, we haven't got these in our contract, which is why it's so cheap to Netflix. But by that time, Netflix had this massive library. Yeah. So we've all been conditioned to, if we pay our $13, we want to be able to sit there for 20 minutes scrolling through different shows going, do I want to watch that? Oh, maybe. No. Oh, perhaps the next one. Perhaps the next one. And then by which time you look at the clock and you go, you know what, perhaps I'll watch this tomorrow instead. Yeah. But then you're in a situation where, as always happens, the incumbents are struggling to catch up. And the one that's done it really, really well is actually Disney. And if you look at the numbers over the last 3 months of who has got the most subscriber game is Disney Plus. They've done phenomenally well. Now, the Disney Plus library is really small.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because if you've ever seen a child watch Frozen, I can guarantee you they're watching it for the 100th time.
My niece.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
So there aren't many shows that someone will watch over and over and over again. So if you look at it from a parent standpoint, I'm paying $10 a month. It's cheaper than that for Disney Plus as a babysitter for my kids. And they will watch those shows over and over again. It's brilliant. So they don't have to go into crazy depth of library, but HBO Max has their streaming service coming out. We're going to have one from Viacom coming out. We've got Hulu. We've got NBC. We've got CBS. They're all coming out with their streaming services. We are not going to be as forgiving because we don't watch the same movie over and over and over again the same way that kids do. Yeah. So we're in a situation where you've got someone like CBS who, and I don't know the exact numbers, so I'm using this as an example. Let's say they make 45 new shows a year, and the rest are reruns on their programming and what have you. They're having to go to 80 new shows a year, plus other support stuff that they're going to try and buy. But where do they buy it from? Netflix just went to all the other broadcasters and bought their stuff.
Yeah.
But so they're going to have to go to the indie world to buy content to be that filler content. And that's not just them. That's Showtime who are going to have streaming. That's every single streamer is going to have to increase the volume of what they can commission by a huge amount, which puts a massive strain on our industry because we have enough crew that's working to support the current industry. Suddenly, if we're doubling the amount of productions going to be made, we have a problem with sound stages. We have a problem with crew. Right?
Yeah.
We have a problem with story because at the moment, our old system is built that you have studio execs and development departments who I wrote a superhero movie for Walt Disney years ago, and the notes and the process over the year for changes was just it tore my hair out, which is one of the reasons why I said I don't want to be in this model in that way.
Yeah.
But what was amazing to me was when you start looking at the amount of demand that we're seeing for content, these networks are not going to be able to develop the same way again. So the power is going to shift into the producer, where the producer is going to be trusted to develop that content and deliver with a bow on it. And that's a game changer for our entire industry, because not since really the 70s and then the early 90s for TV have producers had power. Producers were always, I'm going to employ you. You're going to own no IP for the last 20 years, and you're just essentially a work for hire. That's changing. And so in terms of back to your comment about, making content, I think the best filmmakers are filmmakers who get to practice. Just like the best actors. And it's one of the reasons why I have a problem with SAG and the minimum payments that you have to make to an actor on a low budget movie, even if the actor is putting it together themselves with their union, is just crazy. Same as small theater payments, because actors get better as they act more. We know that with anything that we do. So the more that you can be out shooting a film as a filmmaker, the better. And it's very difficult to do that within Los Angeles to a certain extent. The other side of it is it's very easy because there's so many people wanting to shoot stuff.
Yeah.
But then your actors can sometimes get a bit problematic because if the union hears, and should I be doing this? And if it's successful, and then the agent gets involved, and you're sort of, oh my goodness, why did I even start this? Yeah. So I think the more that when we can get out of those major metropolises and start making content and start being known within that community and building our own brand as a filmmaker, that's what becomes very exciting to the networks. Because if you can show a body of work where you constantly deliver, then you're in a position to meet this massive content demand that is here now and is going to be here for the foreseeable future. But without that body of work, it's very difficult for them to take that jump on you right now, because they just can't see that you're going to constantly deliver.
Yeah. That's one thing that I feel like in this new media world, especially as you look at things like YouTube or even just people on social media, how much content that they have to put out on a weekly basis. That wasn't the case. Like even when I was in film school, like I'd freak out if I had one film project to turn in a month, and then you got people on YouTube that are doing basically like entire short documentaries like every other day or something. It's insane.
Well, and that's part of this big shift, right? Because we're shifting away from the ego, in a way, says I need to have my my slate with my name on it, and I need to have the nice dolly, and I need to have all this great stuff to show that I'm a legitimate filmmaker. Yeah. Well, that's all BS, because I'll give you a great example. Will Smith, a couple of years ago, bought a feature film that was shot for no money. It was a thriller set at LAX airport. And these two guys decided, you know what, we're going to make this thriller. We love it. No one's buying it. So we are going to shoot the whole thing on our iPhone.
Oh, wow.
And so they would go around LAX. Now, we all know what LAX is like. It's one of the worst airports. And the cost to shut that down and shoot a movie would be ridiculous. Yeah. But what they did was they walked around with an iPhone with one actor or two actors shooting the whole thing. If they needed to get airside or be on an airplane, then they simply bought the cheapest flight they could to San Jose or to San Francisco. They'd get on the airside, shoot the stuff they needed for the day, and then come back the other side. But no one ever questioned it because they were on an iPhone.
Wow.
And guess what happened? They shot it. It got into a film festival. People went nuts over it. Will Smith heard it, said to Universal, buy this, and they can direct now the feature of what I'm doing.
Wow. That's crazy. There's a lot of cool stories like that. It is cool how even the tools of filmmaking have been so democratized now, to where if you know how to use a camera, you could shoot something great on your phone. I mean, that's the reality of it, is that, you don't need this big, of course, tech people are going to get upset, but you don't need, the latest, whatever Panavision model with all the lenses and stuff. If you could tell a great story and you know how to operate a camera, you can get something, done for cheap.
Yeah. And look, if you're a filmmaker, then you have to be a storyteller first, not the technologist.
Yeah.
Now, the person who wants to be the cameraman, you can. I've got a friend of mine who started to be a professional photographer, and how he got really known was through his iPhone photographs. And he had a whole art gallery in LA that was all iPhone photographs.
Wow.
And now he's earning big money shooting for big brands, and sometimes he still uses an iPhone. But it's not about, Danny Boyle with what's the zombie movie set in London?
28 Days Later.
Yeah.
28 Days Later. It was shot on a Canon X1.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not about the tools. If you're a filmmaker, if you're a storyteller, get out and tell your stories. Just like you guys are proactive with this podcast, right? You're out there, you're telling stories, and you're building your brand. You can only build your brand, and your brand actually is then your equity to be able to move on to other things if you're out in the world doing stuff. But if you're sitting there talking about it and writing scripts and no one ever sees it, then you are doing nothing. And unfortunately, that's an awful lot of people around the world who want to get into entertainment or into any competitive landscape. They're not putting themselves out there enough and taking risks.
Yeah. Do you think that with this whole pandemic that there are people that are laying kind of in hiding, and then when this stuff gets lifted, there's just going to be this whole boom of all the stuff people were making and hiding? Or do you think a lot of people are just still sitting on their ass and eating Cheez-Its?
I think there's a lot of people still sitting on their ass eating Cheez-Its. I don't think I've ever had a Cheez-It in my life.
Whoa. Maybe keep it that way. That's a good thing to hold to. Put that on your gravestone.
So look, here's what's happening at the moment is there are an awful lot of producers who were getting ready with their projects and developing them. Yeah. They've stopped developing. And the reason why they've stopped developing is because all of the traditional buyers are so desperate to buy content to feed the machine because the machine is running out of content that those producers have actually started phoning around to filmmakers who have films that have just been completed, but they have no way of getting it out to a market, or films that went out to the market but never sold and now have the opportunity to being sold for good money. So a lot of those producers who were traditionally developing are out actually scouring for projects that they can sell immediately and they can make a couple of $100,000 straight away, or $100,000. I think there are a number of people out there. I know one guy at the moment who's shooting a film. He wrote it in a week. It's all set in his apartment. He lives with 3 other people. They're shooting it there, and then all the other characters are via Skype. I think we're going to see a lot of that. Yeah. I think there's going to be a few that will rise to the top and be really good and will make some people. And there's going to be a lot of them that will just fall to the wayside. And I hope that none of those filmmakers feel dejected by the fact that it didn't go anywhere, because essentially you've been set a very, very a narrow lane of which to make your movie at the moment.
Yeah, it's true.
And so your competition is going to be massive. But by the same score, when you start to look at film festivals are in a problem in that they're going to have a lack of content next year. So if you are doing a film and you can get it ready by, when are we looking at? September, probably end of September is the deadline for Sundance. Now is your best time to apply to Sundance ever, because the amount of applications are going to be a lot lower. Oh,
that's a good tip.
Yeah, absolutely. So make as much as you can, right?
Exactly.
And then I think there are those brave filmmakers, like here in Oklahoma. We're open now. We're open for business. So there's a film that just started shooting this week. You can say, you know what? I'm going to go to Austin where I've got family, and I'm going to jump in a car. We're going to drive out there with 4 buddies, and we're going to rent an Airbnb, and we're going to shoot in the city of, because Texas, I think, is completely open now. Yeah. We're going to shoot something there. And we're just, because otherwise we're going to be sitting at home anyway here in LA. Yeah. So I think there's massive opportunity for people to be going out and creating content. And that content has a better chance to be purchased than ever before.
Wow. That's so cool.
Wow.
So exciting.
I've always been always been a fan of independent filmmaking and people doing stuff on their own outside of the system. But it's cool to see that's going to be prevalent now, more prevalent than it has been even in recent years. I don't know. I just love I love seeing the man get it. You know, whenever people in power don't have it anymore, it's a good feeling.
Well, look, I think that one of the big changes we're going to see, and I talk about it in the article, is exhibition, and we're going to see all the movie theaters go bust over the next 3 to 6 months. Yeah. I think AMC have got another 6 weeks left of money in the bank, and they have so much debt, that unless a very big Chinese backer comes in and buys them just to hold on to it. And what you got to remember also is that AMC don't own most of their properties. Yeah. So they're at, $2.5 million. Don't quote me on that, but it's something ridiculous per month that they're paying in lease costs. Wow. So what we're going to see is we're going to see places like Netflix and Amazon come in and purchase them. There was just the rumor that I think it was Amazon was going to purchase AMC. Came out on Monday, which was a week after my article, which I had a nice smile on my face about.
You're a prophet.
But I like that. And so if when we see that happen, when we see that consolidation, there are a lot of people who are in fear of that because suddenly you've got these major corporations like Disney coming in and buying Cineplex. But what they're going to bring is programmatic scheduling of movies, so that it's going to give the option for independent filmmakers to go and four-wall, which means that you pay to be in that movie theater through an automated process. And what it's going to, the impact of that is that filmmakers have to stop thinking about, I'm going to spend all my time making this film, and then I'm going to try and sell it to someone, and that's it. Filmmakers have to change from going, that if I was in any other business and you said, I'm going to go and I'm going to learn, I'm going to make this amazing stapler. It's going to be the best stapler in the world. And then once I've made it, I'm just going to throw it out to a few places and see if they will do everything else for me. Yeah. That doesn't happen. You have to put together your marketing strategy, how you're getting to your audience, who are you partnering with, and then you are controlling how this makes money for the next 10 years. And so many filmmakers forget that, and actually getting the film out there to the audience is 80% of your job. Yeah. 20% is making the movie. Yeah. I mean, I remember having friends that were working on films and they didn't even think about what their festival fees were gonna be, let alone what their distribution model is gonna be.
Well, isn't that kind of the irony of being a lot of artists, if you look at even throughout history, it's it's some people are just very, very creative, but they don't really have an eye for business as much. And that's where, I was impressed in your article. You really dove into kind of the intricacies of where the business is going to be going in terms of finding some of these, like you were saying, producers who are kind of old school producers in that they really know the business. And I think you look at some of the best directors, or at least some of the best postmodern directors who revolutionized the industry, they all had really good producers they were attached to. Yeah. And sometimes when those producers left, they didn't really quite do as well as they did when they were in their heyday. And it's just interesting. It's interesting to see how sometimes the artist, business doesn't necessarily come inherent with the art.
Having said that, if you look at some of the biggest artists out there, they're phenomenal business people. So Steven Spielberg is a phenomenal business person. Now, not only does he have a great team around him, but he's been able to build his business, put together DreamWorks, which was the biggest startup funded business in the world. He's been able to retain rights to things. If you look at, let's dial this all the way back to a young animator who did a little sketch drawing of a mouse that was on his desk, Walt Disney. Walt Disney was the ultimate artist. He's a pen and paper artist. Yeah. And yet he was able to think about, how do I retain the rights to this? How do I get to an audience? What is the deals that I do? James Cameron, again, a great, great businessman. Yeah. So if we start looking at our heroes, they are business people as well. They understand the game that has to be played. They understand their brand equity and what they're doing around that. And I think that's where a lot of people go, yeah, but that's not the fun part. But if you get creative with it, it can be really fun, because you understand that every move you make on that chessboard actually gets you that much closer to the freedom of you being able to do what you do. Tyler Perry, right? Yeah. Tyler Perry is a phenomenal businessman. You look, he's just opened that massive studio in Atlanta. He started, one of the reasons why Tyler Perry is so good, he started by making these very, very, very low budget projects and then going round all the barbershops trying to sell it to people.
Wow.
How many filmmakers do you know that go and make something themselves and then will go out peddling the streets to try and sell one DVD at a time? Although we wouldn't do it with DVDs now, but one DVD at a time.
QR code.
For $10. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
We just don't do it because we look at it and go, "Oh, it's not worth my time. That's not really what I love to do." And it's
fear of rejection.
Just like being a parent. I've got 2 kids. There's a lot of stuff that I love about being a parent. But I don't then go, all this other stuff is a bit too difficult and I don't enjoy it. So I'm just going to leave that stuff and the kids can fend for themselves. Yeah. You got to take both of it together. And that's where the filmmaker has to really step up now. Yeah. And if the filmmakers that do step up, well, they're going to be leading the charge in the next 18 months.
Yeah.
The filmmakers that don't, that are just resting on, I just want to sell the script and I want someone to finance my movie. Yeah, they're going to be still saying that in 18 months. And in 20 years, they're still going to be sitting there going, yeah, you know what, I had it. I was so close, but it wasn't my fault. It was the agents or it was the industry. They never recognized how great this was. We all know it doesn't matter how great your script is because the amount of turds that are made and put onto the market every month.
Gosh,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah.
It's dreadful. If you're a businessman, if you can think about this in terms of a stapler and taking a stapler to market, then that is a game changer and you separate yourself from everyone else in the market.
Wow, that's great advice. And what you said about being creative with the business process, I think some people that have done that really well is the Duplass brothers, like Mark and Jay Duplass. I don't know if you follow any of their stuff, but they started out making these little indie movies, but they've always had creative ways of distributing it. And we're kind of early in even on doing the iPhone thing and doing the just an online release and all that stuff where it's like their book just had a lot of, covers all of that stuff. But it's really cool to see what they've been able to do as like indie filmmakers and just outside of the Hollywood system and make their stuff.
And they're in Texas, right? Aren't they in Austin?
I think they're in LA now. They used to be Austin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they got drawn like a moth to the light.
But one of their whole chapters in their book is like, don't move to LA. You don't need to be here. But their whole family and everything is like established here. And so I guess they stay. But
well, that's it. You can do so much. A friend of mine shot a short film here in Oklahoma. He's Lance McDaniel, and I may butcher the story if Lance is listening to this, so my apologies. But he's the head of the Dead Center Film Festival, which is about to go online next month. And it's going to be one of the first film festivals that actually utilizes drive-in movie theaters.
Oh, that's so awesome!
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
So he was shooting a short film. And he's in this sort of town outside of the city here. And the fire brigade are just down the road and they come out to see what he's doing. And they're saying, hey, one of the guys says, I watch all these DVD extras and I see that they wet down the streets. Do you want me to bring the fire engine out and we'll open up the fire hydrant? We'll wet down all the streets to make it look like that. Wow. He was sort of, that sounds great. Thank you very much.
So cool.
So the car drives around the corner in this shot. It's glistening. It's looking beautiful. You'd have spent thousands of dollars in LA for it. Yeah. And drives up a bit timidly, this car, gets out, and the woman runs into the house. And Lance says, okay, let's do it again. Can you drive a little bit more aggressively? Well, the actress didn't really have the confidence to drive aggressively. And the police were there. And one of the police ladies came up and said, hey, look, I look a bit like her. Do you want me to hop in the car and I'll spin it round the corner? And then, you can just get her getting out of the car. And he sort of, that's great. So suddenly he's got, Oklahoma police officer driving the car around the corner, skidding it around the corner, coming up to a fast stop. The streets are wet down. This is Hollywood. And he's not paying a single penny for it because everyone's just excited for it to be here. Yeah. Whereas I shot something in LA and I kid you not, this happened. We were shooting. Suddenly someone came out with a leaf blower. All on the front. So you sort of, okay, PA, $100. Go and tell them to stop it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. It's $150. Okay. So they go inside. 5 minutes later, the next door neighbor is out blowing their leaves.
Oh no.
But they're blowing it with the same leaf blower. They'd gone down to the back and passed it over the fence. And it just went down the street. $150, $150, $150.
Oh,
everyone knows that you can make money, and if there's a film shooting here, it's going to be a pain in the ass because we're so used to it and we're so blah, whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas you go outside of those markets and people will turn up. We had a religious movie here. It did ridiculously well shoot here. I Can Only Imagine.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Biggest ice storm of the year happens the night before. They have asked all these extras to turn up for this big crowd scene, like 2,000 extras they needed. And they weren't paying them, right? Wow. Please come down and support us. It was on all the Christian radios. And biggest ice storm. And the producers sort of, if we get 5 people, I'm going to be shocked. They get down there, and people have traveled from Texas. They've traveled from all over the place to be in this movie for free, and they have well over 2,000 people turning up there. And they've gone through treacherous weather to get there and show up because this is their chance to be in a movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
So look, I think we're going to see, to loop that back with what you were asking earlier, I think we're going to see more and more productions moving outside of LA for insurance reasons, for creative reasons, for control, because of I think a lot of people that I know, we've got staff in LA with our advertising agency Fanology, and I look at that and I'm on Skype with them, and they're in small apartments, and the heat is coming up, and they don't have air conditioning in their apartments, and they're hearing now they're going to have to be stuck for another 6 weeks. When actually all those people could be buying 5-bedroom homes in a lot of the rest of the country. And we've just proven, we just got rid of our office in LA because we've just proven that actually everyone can work absolutely fine remotely.
Yeah. That's a huge thing, I think. That's a huge overhead that is going to be lifted for a lot of people, not just the entertainment industry, but just in general in the world now.
Well, and I think what you're talking about, it's interesting because it's something that, I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it's this idea of like, living in the big city, living in like an epicenter like LA or New York City or something like that. It's comforting because there's always a lot going on. It's kind of a Shangri-La. I've always thought of it that way, and that you don't really quite feel how time passes because there's a lot going on, and it's just the way it is. I mean, it's just like, because there is a lot going on, but it feels like a sacrifice to leave that, because it is like a blast to the ego. Like you're like, I was in LA and like everything's there, all these famous people I see on the street and everything. But then you don't realize that it's so much more of an investment, like, striking out on your own, wherever you're going, even if it's just somewhere else in California, striking out on your own and doing what Charlie Chaplin did, doing what Buster Keaton did, like back in the old days of like LA was that for them, yes. And you would have wanted to be there. So it's like, why don't you go out to Oklahoma City, like you did, Oklahoma City, and make something, it's cool. I like it.
Let me give you an example on that, right? Because you're so right that often the ego gets in the way, and you feel that if I leave LA, all my friends back home are going to look at it and go, "Oh, he tried. He tried." So what do you do now? You can start a career. Do you need us to find you a job?
Yeah.
And that can be crushing to the soul, right? Crushing to the soul. But the key is to come out and find a place where you can live, where you can tap into the film community, and there are film communities all over America, where you can start making content, and you will be happier because of it. One of the things, I didn't expect there to be such a big film community here in Oklahoma City, and I commute between LA. So I'm in LA every month, or I was until we got locked down. So I get my little fill, and it's a 2.5-hour flight. The flights are $180.
Yep.
I can get in there. I leave here at 6 a.m. I'm in my breakfast spot down in Venice Beach by 8 a.m. in the morning LA time. And I can see everyone and do everything I need and then get back here. But one of the things that we found was that suddenly we were in this opportunity where we could buy a 50,000 square foot building with 12 acres of land, an option on another 66 acres. And this building was a school that was closed down. It has a gymnasium that is you'll laugh at this because we're in Oklahoma, a tornado shelter, FEMA-rated tornado shelter.
Oh, yeah.
So it's got 1-foot concrete walls and a 1-foot concrete ceiling, which cost $4 million to build, or three something to build, which is perfect for a soundstage. So we bought this building, and we're turning it into a facility that will be the Oklahoma Film and TV Academy, where I've got people like the gaffer from Moulin Rouge who's going to teach there. I've got the one of the people from the AD department of The Mandalorian is going to be a teacher there, where these people are moving out of the city as well and saying, "Hey, I'll just travel for work." But we're in a situation where I'm going to have $250,000 worth of grip and electric gear. I'll have 15 cameras. I'll have 3 sound stages. I will have a full post-production suite, all for what will essentially be less, if I look at the actual the payments that I'm putting out, less than it would have cost me to buy the 1,200 square foot home in Venice Beach that I was renting.
Wow.
And so I will be in a position where I will be able to crank content out and take bets on people saying, you've got a great idea, let's do this together, and build that brand around that so that we can understand that audience, because I'm working outside of the system. And that is doable not only in Oklahoma, you can do that almost anywhere where there's a low cost of living. And that's what's exciting. And that is the same not only for film and television, that's the same for any industry. And what we see when we have times of these pandemics and massive upheaval, we saw it in the last writer's strike, massive changes going on within streaming and everything. This is even bigger. We haven't had anything like this for 100 years. This is accelerating the death of companies that were slowly dying. And it's going to accelerate the opportunities for people who've got ideas, who want to make big moves, to really, really do something special. But we've got a window of 18 months to 2 years for you to be the first mover adopter. If you think about it, those people who got on Instagram early on and started posting lots of great content and now have millions and millions of followers and make tens of thousands of dollars a post, right? They're in that position because they were in the first mover advantage.
Yeah.
Today, right now, anyone who's listening to this, know that you are at the cusp of a first mover advantage for any industry you're interested in whatsoever. But you got to take action. So just be brave and make that move.
That's great advice. I think that's a good place to close out. And I think I know what the soundbite will be for the episode.
I'm about to run out of my room right now and start, innovating.
That's awesome, man. If people want to find your stuff, where can they go, Richard?
The best place to see more about what I'm up to and the different companies I'm involved in is just simply to go to www.richardjanes.com, and that's Jan for November, ES, richardjanes.com, and that'll show you the advertising agency, that'll show you the film studio, the Film Academy, and a couple of other fun things that I'm involved in.
That's awesome, and we'll have to have you back on. There's so many things that we could talk about that we can't fit into an hour show. But
well, listen, have me back on when you guys have shot your fifth next project since today, because you're cranking stuff out.
Exactly. That's what we'll do. You got to hold us to it then. That's what we're going to do.
Love a reckoning.
I love it.
Cool. Thanks again, Richard. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back. Hello, gentlemen Scofflaws. Thanks so much for being a loyal listener of the show, and your feedback and support is really what keeps us going and means a lot to us, so sincerely, thank you again. Now, if you're a fan of the show and you want to take your support to the next level, why not support the show on Patreon? We offer all sorts of extras on there, like outtakes, extended interviews, a bonus movie podcast, and behind-the-scenes content. Better yet, we have options that start as little as $1 a month. You pay more for that at a parking meter to go in and grab a cup of coffee at Starbucks. See what I did there? If you're interested in helping support the show, please check out patreon.com/gentscofflaw or click the support link on the website. Again, that's patreon.com/gentscofflaw. We look forward to having you as part of our team. All right. Great guest.
Yeah, dude.
Got to have him back on. There's so much we could unpack with him, but go ahead again and check out his work. You won't regret it. Also, little kind of sort of on topic, what we're talking about this week, Joe Rogan signed that deal with Spotify. Was it a $100 million deal to be exclusive with Spotify?
Yeah, dude.
That's kind of a cool story for podcasters and content creators.
According to the YouTube economics I saw that from that video you sent me, it sounds like Spotify has made like $5 billion off the deal.
Yeah, like
I was going to say $5 billion. That doesn't sound right, does it? Right, no. But we're getting to that age where you can't even say bucks anymore when it comes to money.
Can't even say bucks.
But yeah, dude, it's crazy. It's like It's huge. I'm going to be really interested. I mean, I've never been happier to be a Spotify member.
Yeah.
To have a subscription, which obviously doesn't
Not
really
endorsed by
matter.
Spotify, but go ahead.
Sign up, whatever. But it's funny because I remember being really frustrated that you couldn't get Rogan's podcast on Spotify.
Yeah. Well, it's cool because it seems like they're opening up the video aspect to Spotify for podcasters, which is going to be cool for us and anybody who creates podcasts.
Yeah, for sure.
Plus, I feel like Spotify has become like the default music app for a lot of people. And the fact that the podcasts have been moving over there, at least the last couple of years, it's like, we're on Spotify. But that tends to be kind of like the default way I listen to nowadays. Let us know where you listen to the podcast. You can listen to us again on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and Stitcher, and anywhere else.
Where are the kids listening to podcasts these days? Who let Bill Clinton into the room?
Yeah, who let him in? And if you want to engage with us out the week and participate, be part of the show, go ahead and follow us on social media, all the social medias at Gent Scofflaw. Leave us a comment, or you could write us a review, and you might get featured on the show. Also, if you want to support the show, you could always go to patreon.com/gentscofflaw and become part of the show, basically, by, in a small way, you're helping produce it. You could also go to our merch shop and get a t-shirt or a flask or a mug, or I think that's all I can think of right now.
We got a pint glass.
Pint glass.
Don't we?
Those are nice. Those are nice
we
pint
got beer
glasses.
koozies. We got all sorts of good stuff.
We got flippity floppities.
But flippity floppities as well. The most comfortable footwear you'll ever wear.
Summer's coming.
Summer is coming. Summer's basically here, man. Yeah. And Father's Day is right around the corner. Which
true.
Means that, you could get some of that sweet, sweet merch for your daddy. Because we're living in an age of gentlemen and scofflaws.
Exactly.
We are.
Exactly. Also, if you want to join our giveaway for this month, go to Instagram.com/GentScofflaw and click our giveaway. We're giving away a Garden of Bali aftershave from Phoenix Shaving, aftershave and cologne. So it pulls double duty. And go there and join. Donovan, you are a gentleman and scofflaw, my friend.
As are you.
Thank you. Amigo. Thank you very much. And you guys have a great week.
This has been the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. Visit us on the interwebs at gentlemanscofflaw.com.
Captain says his ice on the river. We ain't getting home if we don't break through. So damn cold, I can't help but shiver. Rise and shine, we got work to do. Hey!